Welcome, everybody, to another episode of There's Insurance for That. We are your hosts, Nate Brown.
And I'm Edwin Moreno, and today we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence in business.
Yes, emotional intelligence in business. Before we get started in this conversation, make sure you click that button that says subscribe, like, share, and comment. We want you to get involved and help the algorithm up. We want to get up to 100 subs. We're in the 70s right now, so help us push that algorithm forward. And yes, very, very big important thing about in business, a lot of business is communication. And communicating is emotional intelligence is key. And
Yes.
it's funny because let me ask you, I don't think there's a one size fits all for emotional intelligence.
No.
Like
So
I
you said
know.
something you said something really big. You said because it's interesting, emotional intelligence, we get kind of caught up on the EI, the emotional intelligence piece of like individual, like my emotional intelligence, your emotional intelligence, and then we
Mhm.
forget about the social intelligence, like the social emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So the social emotional intelligence, that's I think that's the one that maybe there has, at least I haven't seen much emphasis put on, you know, where
Yeah.
it's like social cues, like noticing when someone may feel uncomfortable or asking someone a question to connect with them or, knowing that someone communicates differently maybe because of the way that they were raised or the way that they were brought up. And so they're not trying to be disrespectful. That's just the way that they were brought up, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like that social emotional intelligence of understanding, like, oh, it's me that feels this way, but this person is making me feel this way because of the way that they're acting. But now, how can I get to know this person so that I know like why they are the way they are, or not necessarily why, but just like, who they are, right, as individuals. So I'm not taking the way they're acting so personal, you know?
Yeah.
And
Or
so,
versa. Like I'm hearing you talking, I'm thinking of a story, and it's challenging. Um, But now, back in the day when I used to be face to face with people in their homes, it was one thing. It's not a one size fits all, but one thing that does fit all in most cases is kindness. Kindness, I think everybody likes a kind person. Not even nice, but kind, right? However, when things shifted to just phones, I remember there was a moment where I was just getting leads and dialing, and we had scripts to memorize. And I never forget, they'll tell you don't be too personal in the script, just kind of go with the flow and get to it. And I called this guy from Texas, and I was like, "Hey, this is Nate." So he's still looking for a final expense insurance, and he just like, "So you just going straight to it, huh? You're not gonna give me a how you doing or anything like that." And I was like, "Oh." He doesn't want you to just come and just get to business like some people are. I'm calling someone in Southern region, Southern hospitalities thing, and I was not my intelligent cues are not ripping. I'm just robotic going through the script, and it hit me. I'm like, I'm about to ask this guy for his social address, his birthday, his wife's birthday, all these things, and I can't even give you a how you feeling this morning. And I was like, noted, like, don't ever do that again. I don't care what the script says. And it got into a point where over time I got into a just like a be yourself. Like be yourself. Like be how, whether they like me or not, be authentically myself. And me, myself, I am a more of a how you feeling? You know what I mean? How you doing type person. You know what I mean? I don't need to necessarily go 15 minutes of talking about the birds and the bees and the sunset and the weather, but I did notice sometimes, especially in that arena, especially on the older folks arena, man, sometimes they did want somebody, they just want somebody to talk to them for a few minutes. And then they like, you know what? I like you. And we all know if I like you, I'll listen to you. You know what I mean? And I might do
right.
business with you if I like you. So it's like, you know what? Those cues are different when you are just on the phone. You know what I mean? Those emotional cues. When you're in person, you kind of chameleon someone or kind of feed off of them and feedback. You know what I mean? But total different arena over the phone. It's crazy. But I think if someone's listening, like yeah, because sometimes I'm nervous on the phone. How am I going to sound emotionally intelligent and comforting and kind and confident if I'm nervous? I don't know if you're going to get hung up on. I don't know whatever. And it's like You just got to be yourself. You got to
But
be.
literally, I mean, that's what emotional intelligence is knowing who you are. Like
Yeah.
emotional intelligence is knowing how you feel. Like it's like that's emotional intelligence. So it's like I think you really like summed it up by saying like be yourself. But and it's difficult. I mean, I'm gonna be straight up, man. Like being a person of color in the insurance industry, sometimes being myself is something that people have identified as loud or too much or yo, hey, yo, tone it down a little bit. Like I've had like managers tell me something like that before, you know what I mean? Or like, oh, easy there, like calm down, but it's that's my excitement, that's who I am. And
Yeah.
so it's hard because like it's really easy for us to say be yourself. We're independent. Like a lot of what we do is we're not in a under a major corporation that is like monitoring everything we do, you know?
True.
And so I also want to like highlight that like being yourself could also cause you to lose your job sometimes. Like that's
When keeping it real goes wrong.
hey
One of
bro,
those
there's
things.
literally a skit about that.
Yeah.
That's Dave Chappelle, right? That's a Dave Chappelle skit from the Chappelle
Yeah.
show. Like he
Yeah.
literally and Dave Chappelle's a political dude, man. Like when you hear him,
Oh,
like
he's
he,
brilliant.
you
He's
know what I'm
brilliant.
saying? So he's that skit is a truth. Like he's
Mhm.
speaking on something that's like real, bro. Like you can't go into a corporate environment and be like, yo, I'm done with this. Yo, y'all can't like that. They're like, what? Yo, chill,
What?
Jamal. Like they're immediately like that's not
Yeah.
like for real. Like they like
Yeah.
that's what you're met with in those environments. So I also want to be like, yo, look, like there's a art in being yourself also. Like
Hmm.
because sometimes being yourself is staying quiet.
Mm, that's true. And
Sometimes
sometimes
being
that
yourself,
person is can be perceived as the most knowledgeable or the most wisest person in the room when you got a bunch of blabbermouths. And I think keeping it real can go. No, I mean the skill was like keeping it ghetto almost. You might as well keeping it ghetto goes back because you just got straight
but
hood.
bro, but no, but
But
ghetto, but that's a person
but
that's like that's who he was. He was
that's
being who he was.
and I think it's a way to be authentically yourself. For one, you have to be comfortable with being authentically yourself, but you have to be trying to be being your best self as well. You know what I mean? You want to in certain settings, you're not at the cookout. You know what I mean? You're at work. So it's sometimes you gotta be your best self, in certain environments. Not to say code switch, because we talked about that episode before. I don't really know how to do that too well, but one thing I do, I curb my slang usage in certain settings. I'm not about to do anything with a bunch of slang, and mostly it's because of communication. I'm like, I don't want to start saying words that. What's the use of saying it when no one understands what the heck I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like,
But that's emotional, but that's emotional intelligence, bro.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's the key. That's being emotionally intelligent and social emotional intelligence because you are being aware of your audience.
yeah,
You're understanding who your audience is and the mode that you have to communicate in order to get the message across to your audience. So my point is, I believe it's worth taking time to learn about your audience and to
yeah,
learn how does your audience communicate? What type of verbiage is your audience receptive to? You
yeah,
know? And so that way you can apply who you are, like the script, right?
yeah,
You use that script, but you made it yourself,
yeah,
you know? So it's like you put your personality into that script. And I think that's a very key, like in business, we need to learn how to put our personalities into certain scripts that we're like that we have to recite,
yeah,
to certain relationships that we have to be a part of. Like I'm a big proponent of that, man, because it's like if we don't, we just end up blaming everybody else, which it kind of
yeah.
is. Like I think that's a part of that is true, and you got to take some responsibility too,
Yeah, and I think there's a clever way to be yourself. The reason why I'm saying this is because like, all right, I'm at some of our insurance conventions. I've been to some where it's just plain Jane dull, whatever. I've been at TKO where I'm rapping on stage. You know what I mean? To a Kendrick Lamar beat. We're all professionals, but we can create that kind of environment. And I was laughing the other day that one of my buddies, shout out to Bajoy Phillip. He's one of the I think the head of HR at Vanguard in Pennsylvania, right? And he just shared a video with us. He did a public speaking about leadership, and he opened up with the Mobb Deep Shook Ones beat and dropped the 16, and the boy can spit. So here's where social intelligence and another thing is crazy, right? For one, my boy's Indian. He's probably one of the best rappers I ever met in my life, for real. And he gets up, and his bars are crazy. He's intertwining leadership and godliness and principles all in his 16 to the Shook Ones beat. The thing that we all talked about afterward was everybody's reaction because they're like, "Oh, this is the head of HR. Give it up for Joey Phillip, man." And and he like, "Yo, yo, everybody," and everybody first, everybody did one of these. Like,
Of course.
can we do this? Like,
Right.
can we
Right.
get into this? And
Right.
then they got into it.
Right.
And, but he was like, he took that risk of like, yo, this is who I authentically am. Like, I love rap.
Yeah.
I'm a rapping
Yeah.
genius and I'm a entwine it with whatever. But what got him was afterwards, people's defenses went down, their expectations got a little bit more calm. He became a thermostat and changed the tone, and people came to him afterwards. You do something like that, you're like, I don't know how people received it,
Of
but
course.
people
Of
came
course.
to him and was like, yo, that bar you said about this, that, you referred that book, that was sick. Like they were excited. They like, you finally got excitement in our meeting. And this is coming from head of HR and Vanguard.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
wow. I said, dude, you took a risk there and paved the way that was not there the whole conference. You know what I mean? But because of your ability, your stature and leadership is impeccable, your reputation is impeccable, and they just saw the other side of you, which actually made you more relatable. Because before then, people probably just assume you're just a stiff-necked,
Yeah, smart.
dull,
Right. No, that's
operated,
smart. When you're in a
with no
position
sense
of
of
power
humor,
like
no
that.
sense of life. And so I think with people, emotional intelligence, some people do, even in corporate settings, dude, they do want to lay their hair down a little bit. You know what I mean? So they want to see that you are a down to earth person, and it goes back to becoming a good person and working on yourself and being a kind person and a nice person, but being authentically yourself. People can people can smell BS. You know what I mean? It's a
Right.
BS reader that most people naturally have, or they're trying to figure out within the first 2 minutes of me. You like, what's this guy really like? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think all these things go into play with, negotiating things in meetings, and big thing is communication. A lot of people don't know you emotionally communicate a lot in certain settings. Like I never forget another story. Man, I got all these stories. I never forget I was late with some paperwork. We couldn't find a document that my director needed at a job I had in Philly. And she just came into my office. She finally found the file. She came in and threw it at my desk. Pop. You know what I mean? Like, and did one of these. And I was like, yo, Courtney, what's going on? This is the file we've been looking for whatever, whatever. It was in, and I'm like, what that got to do with me? I don't handle the department. Like, I did this there. And so later that day, because trying to talk to somebody when they're heated, you're not gonna get through. So
Right.
I
Talk
came
to, right.
through that day, which just I just had grabbed some papers and I went to her desk, threw them on her desk, and went like this. And she said, "Mr. Brown, what's going on?" I said, "That is exactly how I felt at 9 o'clock this morning when you did that to me." And she said, "I'm sorry." Like she was emotionally just hot. She was heated. She was under pressure. She was. I said, I get it. You're under stress. It's a quarterly review. It's all these things. But I was like, let's not do that. Like, let's not do that again. Like, neither one. You know what I mean? We owe it to ourselves to be professional, be cool with each other in this setting. We all under stress. You know what I mean? She's like, you know what? I respect that. Thank you. And she was glad she didn't be like, well, I'm the director. No, no, no. She didn't do that. She just took it like, because she knew who I was. She was like, you know what, you usually a pretty cool dude. And, that's not, I didn't have to come here at you like that. I was heated. I mean, I'm glad she was apologizing. But that, what if I had a bad day? What if that emotion just made me, yo, who you think you like, I'm coming to my office storming and throwing stuff around. Like, you got to be emotionally intelligent, and sometimes that means you even got to pause yourself and regroup yourself sometimes in certain settings and be like, remind yourself who you are, why you're here, and what message you're trying to convey, before it becomes you know a tit for tat, rage battle or something like that, or um you start making bad decisions based on bad emotions, you know what I mean, or based on misread emotion, you know what I
Well,
mean.
just yeah, based on not even knowing how to process your emotions, you know. I think a big part of emotional intelligence is knowing how to process how you feel. You know, man, I got receipts, man. I've read, not hundreds yet, but I'll say, close to past like over at least over 50 books like that have to do with like emotional intelligence or just like personal development, emotional processing, how the body processes emotions, how what the body feels with certain emotions, how certain emotions are retained in certain parts of the body, how
Yeah.
past generational trauma is passed down through emotions and how we feel, it's in our cells literally and our feelings like are valid and I've read different books about communication and fighting, like fighting with your spouse, like fighting with your significant other, and the beauty of fighting and what is it that you're fighting for, or I've read about the drama triangle when you're in victimhood, when you want to persecute, and when you become, you're either the victim, you're either the victim, the persecutor, or you're the hero. You're trying to rescue everyone, and how we get caught up in that triangle constantly. We're either the victim, we're either the rescuer, or we're the persecutor. Like, or we see someone as the victim, we see that person as the rescuer, and then we want to persecute them. So we're like, it's a constant. This is so I got receipts on like going in on this stuff, like learning it, reading it, and taking courses, like actually like completing, I completed a 5-year course dedicated solely to like my emotional processing and social processing and so all these different things that I've learned throughout it all, it comes down to 5 basic things: fear, hurt, anger, sadness, joy, and like having a relationship with those five, like
Yeah.
literally, like and so
Well,
I believe I mentioned earlier, like there's a big kind of like us being emotionally intelligent, but we don't talk about the feelings, like the like what's like in order for us to get to our emotion, like we have to feel. It's like emotion is energy in motion, right? So like that's like what they describe it as. But really what it is, it's a feeling that you feel first, and then from that feeling, an emotion comes from that, right? So like if you're feeling angry, like you might emote your anger very differently. Like enraged, you might like go within yourself and hurt yourself. You might want to hurt other people. Like there's all these different, right? If you're sad, you might be like okay, mopey. And so you're like so the way you're like your emotion, the way you're processing that feeling is by like being down, by being melancholy, by being depressed. Like there's like all the, you might feel joy. When you feel joy, you might not even know that you're feeling joy. So there's like all these, when you're scared, bro, fear is the one like you said it, like fear is the bro, that's the baseline. Like that's the first emotion we developed as human beings because because fear is what kept us alive. Like fear, like when we felt fear, we're like, oh, we got to stay away from that. Like fear helped us remember to stay away from certain areas because they could cause harm. So, like the relationship with fear, I believe is the biggest one that we all, like as human beings, need to like like understand, like be like have an intelligence or an understanding of like
Oh, you were muted for a second. I think you tapped the button by accident. Or you just coughing. Okay.
yeah, yeah, we always talk about conquering fear or like, you know, not feeling fear or like avoiding fear, where it's like, bro, that's your biggest friend. Like
You
that
know,
is
I mean, this may be another subject for another time, but call me. My dad once did actually call me crazy, but because out of emotions that are, present, that's one of the emotions that I actually feel the less of. It was weird. Like it because it's not common. There's a lot of wild stuff that I did as a child. And my dad would be like, "Did you even like feel for?" And I also have like a kind of a high tolerance for pain, whatever. So I will like do things that without thought, and even as an adult, like and it's one of the things. If I some of my friends who in business who are very safe, calculated decisions, and it's worked for them, and if it took longer, they always have told me, said, "Dude, I admire the fact that you are daring enough to in this area." I call it jumping off the plane without a parachute, like and or being able to take those risks and sometimes I'm like, dude, but sometimes those risks hurt. You know what I mean? I wish I was more like you were and made more careful, calculated moves. And on the flip side of that, the reason why they haven't made certain moves is because of fear. And the reason why I
exactly.
have made certain moves is because I don't have enough of it. You know what I
Bro,
mean?
bro, I relate. Bro, you're not alone.
So
Bro, you're
it's
not
like
alone with that. Trust, keep going though.
it's
Keep going. Keep
crazy.
going.
It's like one of those emotions where I've over the years I've grown to become more intelligent. Like, okay, Dak, I didn't have to do that. I could have done this a little bit smarter. And I'll ask my wife her opinion on things because she operates more of fear, and sometimes it just gives me that other perspective. Like, hey, if you do this, this could happen. Because at the moment, I'm not even seeing the other thing that can happen. I'm like, this is fun. I'm jumping off. Well, I
No,
see
bro,
the
but
goal. I'm
that's
jumping off.
bro, but
And
that's the beauty of like what does it because bro, that's literally the reason why I brought up fear is because that's the first thing I had to build a relationship with. Bro, my whole life I had to not like process fear. If I would have stopped to process fear, I wouldn't be alive right now.
mm,
I'm not exact, bro. Both my parents were locked up. I mean, both my parents were out of my life at a very young age. I went through like a very difficult, like tumultuous childhood, and
yeah,
and I was out there, like I was out there, in Chicago, like raised like not in the outskirts of Chicago, like in
yeah,
Chicago proper, and so I grew up where fear like had to be conquered. Like fear was like the non-existent. And so yes, like I'm not risk averse. I'm
yeah.
very much all about risk because of that. Now, bro, and what my parents did for a living. Like I was around like cowboys. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I was around some stuff, man. Like I was around people really going for it. And so there was no time for fear. So, bro, I'm relating 1,000%. And that's why I brought up fear because it was one of the first things that I had to realize, oh,
Yeah.
I want to have a relationship with this. Like, I want to have a relationship with you. Like, I've crystallized that part of myself without realizing that, oh, this part has served me. I'm grateful that I'm willing to take risk. So that's good. Now I need to learn how to be like, well, let me feel like what's really like, let me feel that fear. Like what really is like, what's like, what is that? Like what's going on? And then from there, I could actually keep going up this ladder of emotions. I got this awesome like model. I'll share it with you. I'll send it to you in a message. It's called the developmental model. I got it at one of these at one of the courses that I took.
Hmm.
And it really gives the levels of emotions, like the base level and like how they like kind of like how we feel, like what the like how we process them. And like
Yeah.
something that I noticed was like when I feel angry, it's actually it could very well be that I'm feeling scared. So
Mm.
I've used anger to cover my fear.
Ah, okay. So nobody would know. You probably wouldn't even know, like until you discovered that about yourself. And I agree to that too. Like when I was in therapy, um, talking about some things, and he was looking at me kind of weird through the Zoom, and I'm like, what's up? And he was just like, you don't feel that? And like I was like, what you mean? He's like, dude, I give you permission to feel. You just told me something traumatic. Like you're allowed. And it's weird that I had to hear that phrase and allow and tell myself, like maybe 3 days later, let me go ahead and feel this. And I cried like a baby for like 20 minutes, but it was so cleansing. It was so healthy. And I didn't even realize I had something bottled in. You know what I mean? But that sadness disguise itself as anger or something, or I just would be like numb. I would just numb myself to it because, I'll just say it's just part of life, or, you don't get worried about that. But it actually felt good to release some of those emotions. And I was like, oh, shoot, I promise you, I'm 44. No, yeah, I've been 44. I think I've cried more in the past 4 years
I
than I've
relate.
cried from a baby to 40. I'm that up. You know what I mean? And just allowing myself to be able to feel and process emotion a little bit more. Like, you know what? It's okay. And even, I used to tell my children, hey, shut those tears off. I got daughters. They're gonna cry. Now
I
I'm like,
know.
you know what? Your feelings are valid. Let it out. Let it
Yeah,
out.
it's
Let that
important.
let
Don't
that
hold that in.
yeah, yeah. And like I was repeating a trauma of don't be able to, boy, don't shut that noise up, shut the tears off. We don't do that. And I think that's my dad probably like, don't you do that because it's gonna make me want to do that. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Like I don't like I'm trying
I
I've
think
been
it was
putting that
more
away for
that
so
at the
long.
top because
Don't bring
I've
that
only
up.
seen my dad cry one time. We had a heart to heart at like 22 years old and I graduated college. I finally approached him about things that affected me and I had questions, you know what I mean? And then I got an understanding. And as he was processing that, he started bawling like a baby. I'm like, oh shoot, I've never seen this. You know what I mean? And he was apologetic about some things. And I'm at a place of that in my life now with my older daughters. I'm like, hey, I didn't realize and I didn't do everything right. I loved you guys, but I realized I didn't do everything right, and I would be a fool to. I'm trying to let them understand. If I did everything right as an adult raising daughters when I grew up with no sisters, dude, I'm a magician. That's
Right,
a, you know what I mean? That's weird.
right.
I'm
I agree.
supposed to make some mistakes. I do not understand emotions and how y'all process these things as extra hormonal and extra this and extra that. So forgive me. I'm a man. I do not understand. You know what I mean?
Oh
And
yeah, bro.
I think
Oh
that
yeah.
applies to business, family, friendships, so many every area of life when you're dealing with people, man. Even when you're dealing with yourself and looking yourself in the mirror, man. Just being able to take a pause and be like, where am I emotionally? You know what I mean? And where do I want to be? Where do I need to be? Do I need to live in this moment for a minute and embrace this? Not hold, do I need to not hold on to this emotion for too long? Or do I need to, where am I? Just take that, be self-aware of where you're at. You know what I mean? Because it can jeopardize relationships. It can jeopardize business. It can jeopardize meetings and things you're trying to correlate and to other people. They could take it the wrong way based on, how you are emotionally set
And
at the moment.
and based on what they're going through also, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone, you're not the only one that's going through something. Like
Yeah.
everyone has their life and everyone is feeling something emotionally. We're at time, so I wanted to kind of just like close off, just highlighting something that really stood out for me is just the effects of our emotions and how I believe when since you started processing what's been going on with you, I believe you became a better businessman. Like I believe that elevated your capacity for business and it elevated your capacity to receive business and it even elevated your capacity for people to communicate with you because I believe that like if you go into a meeting upset about what happened to you the day before, earlier that day, that meeting is going to feel that energy. Like if you haven't processed those feelings, that meeting, someone is going to be like, yo, something was off. And
Yeah,
even though what you said was fantastic, like you made so much sense, that doesn't matter because you were off. Like something
yeah,
about you was off. Like something about you was closed off. Something about you made it hard for people to even ask you questions or want to like engage with you. And
yeah,
so um I just like I just want to highlight how much like what we do pours to everything else in our life, right? Like what we're feeling, what we're processing pours to everything else. And as a business owner, business person, whoever, woman, man, however you identify, you um have to like process your emotions. Like you have to increase that emotional intelligence.
yeah, you do. I think that's big. I mean, that is the takeaway for me. That's the biggest thing. And I just, want to encourage anybody else listening. I mean, something you say you did and something I did, like do the work on yourself first. Like do the work. Like do the work. It's a nonstop work. It's
It never
learning
stops.
yourself and getting and improving all the time, but it just makes you better. And be okay with circling back to, as you become aware of certain things. If there's something that went wrong or you emotionally processed wrong and you offended somebody, it's okay to go back and repair those relationships and explain, like, that's where I was then, here's where I am now. That person could have been holding something in and harboring something, so you might, and asking for forgiveness for your mistakes or just something that you were unaware of emotionally or how you not didn't process it right. Those conversations are healing on both ends. You know what I mean? So that's something that I could, suggest to somebody who's listening to this. But again, make sure you like, share, comment this, subscribe. We're at 77 subs, I think, on this episode. We're trying to get to 100. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned for next week for another episode of There is Insurance for That.
Peace.
Peace.